The Mercedes Benz GLC has been a home run hit for the brand ever since it arrived at showrooms back in 2015. It's the perfectly positioned crossover within the family of vehicles for Mercedes Benz, as it's more luxurious and upscale than the GLA, also more practical as well, but more affordable than the GLE. So if you are on a budget and you can't spend the money for a GLE, the GLC in my mind is a no-brainer. Also, it's the best-selling vehicle in the lineup, and I think for a really good reason. But 2023 comes with a myriad of changes, not only when it comes to the exterior, but also the interior as well. But more importantly, Mercedes-Benz retuned the transmission, the suspension, dropped in a mild hybrid system, and also revised the platforms underpinning this crossover to make it more enjoyable to drive on a weekly commute, but also make it more in line with other crossovers in this market. And that's why I am here. I want to take a deep dive into the 2023 Mercedes-Benz GLC, see how it compares to other vehicles in this market, also see how it compares to last generation, and also see why, if you are looking at buying a luxury compact crossover at around $60,000, then maybe taking a look at the 2023 Mercedes-Benz GLC might be a great decision. Now, before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Mercedes Benz of Burlington in Burlington, Massachusetts for allowing me to do this review. The link will be in the description below so you can check out their extensive Mercedes-Benz inventory. Also, before we get started, make sure to hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so you're notified every time a new video goes live on the channel. And so, without wasting any further time, let's get right in this review. Mercedes-Benz has prided themselves for decades on being a mainstream luxury brand that offers premium qualities and characteristics not typically found within the segments they compete in. Heavily favoring comfort, refinement, and sophistication, Mercedes has stayed true to their heritage for their non-performance products. But with the market evolving and Americans desiring dynamic handling and quicker accelerations even for their daily drivers, it was time for this German manufacturer to start implementing those attributes to their best sellers. And it all starts with the 2023 GLC, which has returned for another generation, and arguably is nothing like the model year it's replacing. Starting off with pricing, the GLC we have today is equipped with the Exclusive package, coming in at just over $51,000 if you also opt for the 4MATIC all-wheel drive system. While outwardly, at first glance, you're probably wondering what's new besides the refreshed exterior design, it all begins with the platform that underpins the GLC, as the second-generation modular rear architecture brings some much-needed rigidity to the suspension as a whole, where this crossover feels sportier than before without compromising on the premium ride quality. This revised platform does affect overall dimensions, as the GLC is a few inches longer, which will have an impact on the practicality. One of Mercedes-Benz goals for 2023 was to also improve the off-road capability of the GLC with the stiffer suspension, increasing the ground clearance to 7.9 inches compared to 5.9 last year. With the full paint finish around the wheel arches on this model, we don't think you'll be going off-road. However, you should have more confidence when taking on winter road conditions. The design for this second-generation GLC is mostly influenced by the C-Class, as the headlight and taillight housings do give this crossover a car-like road presence and body lines. Adding to the lower profile appearance and bringing the right balance of color contrast, our model has the Night package, which integrates gloss black accents that outline the grille and front splitter, complementing the AMG body styling that comes with the AMG Line package. With the cosmetic restyling modernizing the exterior, there is a sense that the GLC is aerodynamic for this second generation, and rather than just appearing to be elegant and upscale, it now has an aggressive personality that many of its rivals also portray. Moving over to the side profile, we have the optional 19-inch AMG 5-spoke wheels with black accents, which is just one set of a handful of wheel designs available for 2023. Brand loyalists have always been enticed by this crossover's ability to glide over bumps and imperfections with a suspension that's more than forgiving and tuned specifically for those seeking a serene driving experience. And while Mercedes-Benz have made alterations to the chassis, the GLC hasn't lost any of the attributes that's made it a popular vehicle in this segment. You'll have power folding gloss black side mirrors with turn signal indicators to go along with blind spot detection for added safety. Then coming around to the back, the changes to the rear fascia aren't going to be quite as noticeable as up front, besides the thinner LED taillights. On less equipped GLCs, the dual exhaust outlets and diffuser will appear to be larger and more pronounced when parked side by side with the 2022 model. And despite maintaining the same roofline and C-pillar architecture, the rear window is marginally bigger to increase visibility. Gloss black accents on this model once again keeps the GLC looking aggressive from this angle. But regardless of whether you equip this crossover with the Night or AMG line packages, the GLC certainly looks more streamlined than before. Under the hood, the GLC 300 is powered by a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, producing 255 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque, and is paired with a 9-speed automatic transmission. Making its way on this crossover, you now have a 48-volt mild hybrid system, which plays a significant role in how the GLC performs, not only providing an increase in torque, but also playing a vital part in the auto start-stop function, boosting fuel efficiency and overall refinement in stop-and-go traffic. While Mercedes-Benz claims the GLC is no quicker for 2023 compared to the outgoing model, accelerations are snappier and certainly feel faster than last generation. For the drivetrain, rear-wheel drive does come standard, but we have Mercedes-Benz's 4MATIC all-wheel drive system for better year-round versatility. And when it comes to fuel economy, you're looking at right around 23 miles per gallon in the city and 31 miles per gallon on the highway, which is a marginal improvement over last year. Stepping inside, this is where the GLC for 2023 is nothing like its predecessor, as it's received the same treatment as the C-Class, but the changes Mercedes made seems more impactful and eye-opening for this crossover than the sedan it's based on. You're first greeted by remolded MB-Tex leatherette seats that are heated, power adjustable, and offer 3-position memory for both the driver and passenger. Despite Mercedes-Benz always offering a premium interior quality and seating comfort, there's a noticeable improvement in how these seats hug and support you, offering a slightly more dynamic feel to a crossover that's heavily prioritizing luxury above everything else. Further enticing you to drive spiritedly, the perforated, flat-bottom sport steering wheel complements the GLC's stiffer handling and suspension. And as part of the AMG line package, the brushed aluminum sport pedals draw your attention the minute you enter the cabin. In front of you, an all-new 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster immerses you into a modern and somewhat futuristic experience. And by using the small touchpad and haptic feedback buttons on the steering wheel, you can scroll through a variety of information and customize this display with the layout you find most appealing to look at, such as the onboard navigation, or if you want to stick to tradition, you can go with a more minimal display. But your eyes will be focused on the all-new 12-inch touchscreen, with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility to go along with the Burmester surround sound system, which comes standard as part of the exclusive trim. As with most vehicles in this segment, the buttons you are accustomed to seeing on the dashboard have been removed, centralizing all functions, including the dual-zone climate control and drive mode selector, to the screen itself. Cleaning up the menu design from last generation, this head unit is tablet-like and very responsive, where you can access the seat kinetics to find the ideal seat and steering wheel positioning that's tailored specifically to the height you program into the user interface, but you can customize the ambient lighting, scroll through vehicle settings, and set a destination to the navigation system. While more simplified than the outgoing model, this infotainment system remains in-depth, and it's likely you'll spend a few minutes checking out everything this head unit has to offer for 2023. Since we have the exclusive package, a 360-degree top view camera gives you a bird's eye view when parking the GLC, with front and rear backup cameras with trajectory providing the visibility you need when navigating your way through tight spots. Beneath the screen, there will be a row of buttons for the drive mode selector, camera and vehicle systems, volume and tuning for the radio, and the button that activates the onboard assistant. As we take a look at the center console, you'll find tucked away a wireless phone charging pad and a USB-C input. And for the center storage compartment, you'll have plenty of room for smaller items and a tray for loose change. Then to round out the front seating area, above will be a panoramic sunroof, which lets in a lot of natural light to the interior. Now moving on to the second row, we're going to start off on the passenger side. And this seat has been adjusted most of the way back and is somewhat on a recline. And I still have a few inches of legroom to work with here. Now, despite the fact that the 2023 GLC has grown in length by a few inches, none of that translates to the interior. So if you own a 2022 GLC and you're hopping into a 2023, there's no differences at all. Now, when it comes to how much room you have here in the second row, if this is your first time taking a look at this model, you have plenty of headroom even with the massive panoramic moonroof. I don't think if you're on the height of maybe 5'8" or 5'9", you need to worry about hitting your head on the headliner. Of course, taller passengers over the height of 6 feet tall might be saying a different story. But when it comes to legroom, more than enough, especially if you have smaller kids sitting in the second row. And also, I think shoulder room is more than adequate for a vehicle in this price range and in its segment. Then taking a look at the center seat, you're all going to have some good placements for your feet. But the center hump is pretty aggressive, so keep that in mind. They will take away from some of the legroom and shoulder room in this vehicle. However, I do think you can squeeze a third person in on a shorter and maybe even a bit of a longer drive as well, much like we see from other rivals in this market. I do think, though, that if you are looking for something a bit more family friendly, you might want to go with the GLE. But if you're upgrading from a GLA, this is going to be a huge improvement from that smaller subcompact crossover. Then, moving on to the driver's side, the seat is adjusted to someone of my height, around 5'5", and I have plenty of legroom here where I can just sit back, relax, and enjoy the driving experience. Now, more importantly, though, is that just like up front, Mercedes-Benz really remolded these seats to give you more bolstering and support. So if you are on a longer road trip and your driver is encountering back roads or mountain roads and is getting a bit frisky behind the wheel, you'll be nice in place and secure in this crossover. Also back here, you do have two rear air vents. Now we do not have heated outboard seats on this model. And rounding out the second row seating area, you do get a center armrest with two cup holders. Now coming around to the back, you're going to receive a power liftgate. And inside, behind the second row seats, you're looking at right around 22 cubic feet of room, which is a marginal improvement over last generation. That's about a 2 to 3 cubic feet difference from the 2022 model. And you notice that immediately, where this cargo area is wider and longer than before. Also, I had a pretty sizable box back here, which is probably home to some of the accessories and mats for this vehicle. On top of that, I put my camera gear and my tripod, and I didn't need to remove the rear cargo cover, which I think is pretty fantastic. That shows you just how practical the 2023 model is compared to where we were last year at this time. And I think that was a focal point from Mercedes-Benz, which was to make this vehicle more practical and more in line with other compact crossovers in this market and price range. Then with the second row seats folded, you're looking at right around 59 cubic feet, once again being a slight improvement over the outgoing generation. So if you are going on a road trip with the family, or maybe going skiing and snowboarding during the winter, you have plenty of room for all your items and gear. Also really neat to see is that on both sides of the rear cargo area, you'll have a button that will conveniently lower the second row seats. So that way you spend more time loading up this vehicle with all your equipment rather than having to manually lower those second row seats. Also on the left side of the rear cargo area, you will have some netting for some smaller items such as a first aid kit, water bottles, or maybe even car detailing equipment. Then beneath the floor mat, which is really great to see, you do have a spare tire, which is kind of rare in this market. So if you do encounter a flat on your road trips or travels, you can fix that and be back on the road. And then finally, a feature that I really like is the rear cargo cover, which will keep all your valuable items out of sight. So if you are like me and you have camera gear or anything else of value, you can leave them back here and have that peace of mind knowing that no one will be able to peek in and steal what you have. And then once you're done, just press the button and the liftgate will close automatically. It's quite possible that Mercedes-Benz and journalists alike are downplaying just how much is different for the 2023 model year and the second generation GLC. From the outside, it does look like a more modernized, dynamic, and sportier version of the first generation. And then when you step inside, you have the same technology and cabin layout as the C-Class. But the driving dynamics, in my mind, are significantly improved in more ways than one. And it starts off with the 48-volt mild hybrid system that aids in efficiency, but also when you deal with the auto start-stop system, it's so smooth, you don't even notice that the car turns off and turns back on when you let off the brake pedal and you get on the accelerator. Also, of course, this is going to really help out with the smoothness of the accelerations. And Mercedes-Benz retuned the 9-speed automatic transmission, where I gotta say, the gear shifts are so much more crisper and smoother than last generation. And we saw that with the C-Class, but I feel as though for the GLC, this is far more significant because this crossover is really more focused on being luxury first rather than being sporty and really being similar to what you're going to experience with, say, a BMW X3 or Alfa Romeo Stelvio. But this time around, Mercedes-Benz also added some rigidity and stiffness to the chassis, and you're going to notice immediately, whether you're in comfort mode or sport mode, that the steering has tightened up quite a bit, and it becomes a bit more confidence-inspiring when you are on back roads or entering on ramps or getting on the highway. So let's start off this review getting on the highway. Let's see what the performance is like. Mercedes-Benz claims 0 to 60 times are around 6.2 seconds, which was the exact same as last year. Really like the sound of this 4-cylinder. At highway speeds. And of course, we have slow drivers. That's typical up here in Boston. But whether you're cruising at around 50, 55 miles an hour, or you're on suburban streets, the lack of road noise is astounding to me. They've really reworked the sound deadening for this generation. They also added a bit more of that soundproofing when it comes to the glass. You don't hear anything at all, and that's a bit surprising considering that we have some bigger tires on this model. Very fantastic to see here. Now we'll get off the highway very briefly and get back on. Looks like northbound is a bit quieter this time of day. Yeah, the steering is so much better than the 2021 model that I had featured a couple of years ago. And I think that is what was lacking with the GLC. Because sure, I think when it came to the interior quality, when it came to the luxurious nature of this vehicle, it was certainly better than the Audi Q5 and also the BMW X3, since the X3 is more tuned for engaging driving dynamics. But this time around for 2023, this feels a lot more on par with vehicles that can balance both being sporty and luxurious. And while you do feel some body roll, it does feel more connected to the roadways. Plenty of passing power, and really a good amount of low-end and mid-range torque. And a lot of that can be attributed to that mild hybrid system. I also really like the sound of the 4-cylinder engine. It doesn't have that typical droning 4-cylinder noise that just isn't all that inspiring or enjoyable. Now, some of that could be pumped in. That could be all fake audio coming into the cabin, but I have no problem with that at all. And once again, at highway speeds, you're not hearing a lot of that road noise. Now, getting into the vision that you have here to work with behind the wheel of the GLC, there are some minor alterations to the design. When it comes to the front vision, you have a nice panoramic view. A-pillars are super thin, so I don't think you need to worry about having blind spots when you are approaching intersections. And taking a look at your side mirrors, they are a bit smaller, more aerodynamic, but I can see what's on my blind spots, and of course we have blind spot detection. And then looking out back, I noticed this immediately when a 2023 model was parked next to a 2022, that they changed the rear window. So you have a lot more vision looking straight behind you, even with the headrest in the way. That's not going to create an issue at all. Also, something too when it comes to the vision as well, since the front fascia has been restyled, you're going to notice that there's some muscular body lines, and it does make you feel as though you're driving an AMG vehicle. Now, the hood does stick out quite a bit, but that shouldn't create any blind spots when you are maybe parking this vehicle, or maybe you're in the pickup line at your child's school. I don't think you need to worry about that at all, especially since you have a nice seating position as well in this vehicle, where you do sit pretty high up. Also, another thing too is that these MB Tex leatherette seats, they provide a lot of bolstering, a lot of support, and I've noticed for 2023 that the upholstery is far more premium than it was in the past. On the brakes, nice and strong. You have plenty of confidence there. And then in the corners, the steering, to me, is such a standout for 2023. And that's what was lacking for the last generation, because comparing it to a BMW X3, Alfa Romeo Stelvio, Genesis GV70, and even an Audi Q5, I think the driving dynamics is really where the GLC was lacking, and you can't say that for this generation. Also, another thing too is that with the retuned 9-speed automatic transmission, in sport mode, it just feels like it's in the right gear. And I didn't say that the last time. It has a nice pickup to it. So since we are now on back roads, let's put it in eco mode. Let's see what eco is like. And everything loosens up a bit, quiets down. Even in eco mode though, the steering is still somewhat tight. And Mercedes-Benz has always had a fluid steering. It's never been sports tuned in that way. It's not gonna feel like a BMW X3 30i, although this feels more like it now for 2023. Another noteworthy aspect about the 2023 GLC is that the suspension is very comfortable and also forgiving when you are going over the bumps and imperfections on the roadways. It feels so much more refined than it did in the past. And I noticed that with the C-Class as well. I think Mercedes-Benz is really doubling down on the luxury aspect for this vehicle. And that's always what they've been known for, is luxury first and focusing on the sportier attributes for the AMG line, for the 43 or the 63. And that's no different for 2023, even though they did stiffen up the suspension and chassis. And this new platform, or more of a revised version of this platform compared to what we had for 2022, I think is certainly going to feel far more premium than it did in the past. And you got to remember too is that the GLC, even though it was a compact crossover, it was still on the lower end of the crossover lineup for Mercedes-Benz. And now it's not just about the GLA, and there's rumors that the GLB is going to get axed from the lineup coming soon. So the GLC now has to really take on this more luxurious persona than it did in the past. And the design, the interior, and just the way it drives really reflects that, in my opinion. So since I've been in eco, let's put it in normal now, or comfort. Quite honestly, you can put it in any drive mode, and the GLC responds very well. And that was a point of emphasis for Mercedes-Benz for this generation, whether it is a GLC or C-Class, because I think that was one of the weak points for this vehicle, where when you put it in different drive modes, mostly sport mode, it just felt like that this vehicle was lacking in so many ways, especially when it came to the performance and the accelerations. And now this just feels like every other competitor now, in a good way, where if you're somebody who is trying to get a bit more frisky, you're on some back roads, you can do that now. If you are just driving to work and you're commuting and you put it in comfort or eco, it just feels really nice and relaxed and refined. And even though so many people, whether it is journalists or Mercedes-Benz themselves, are understating so much for this generation, this is a vast improvement over the 2022 model. So ultimately, where does the 2023 Mercedes-Benz GLC fit in this very crowded segment? Because the luxury compact crossover market is pretty oversaturated. And I think when you take a look at Mercedes-Benz, they were always going to be the ones that would outclass BMW and Audi when it came to luxury, refinement, interior quality, and just giving you an experience that I think far exceeds the price point. But when it came to the on-road performance and technology, I think Mercedes-Benz was taking a backseat to both BMW and Audi from different perspectives, because BMW, of course, is the ultimate driving machine, stiffer suspension, stiffer steering, and then Audi is giving you more of a technological experience with their infotainment systems and full digital gauge cluster. But 2023, the GLC, much like I felt with the C-Class, is far more in line with its closest rivals from Germany than it was in the past. But also, there is no doubt that you really can't compare this to non-German rivals, because this drives a lot better than the Volvo XC60. This is far better than what we see from Acura, Lexus, and Infiniti right now. And this just, to me, feels like Mercedes-Benz is getting back in the game of being competitive against its domestic rivals. And I'm so glad to see this, because with vehicles that have the 9-speed automatic transmission from Mercedes-Benz, I wasn't necessarily a big fan. Sure, for a lot of buyers who are just looking for a luxury vehicle, more than adequate, more than sufficient. But if you're somebody that's hopping in from a rival brand, the Mercedes-Benz GLC is speaking to you more directly than it was before. It's through the steering, through the accelerations. The mild hybrid system does so much this crossover, whether it is the auto start stop or just aiding in straight line performance and also the efficiency. This to me just feels like a more complete crossover that really is worthy of slotting beneath the GLE in the lineup, where if you don't have the budget to buy a GLE, the GLC now for 2023, it feels very much like the price point that you see on the sticker on the window. To me, this isn't a minor improvement or a small adjustment from one generation to the next. That this revised platform is giving you something far better than what Mercedes-Benz was offering in the past. And while conventional wisdom would suggest that Mercedes-Benz would be a bit more conservative with their updates just to not alienate current customers and clients, I feel as though that Mercedes-Benz is not only appealing to current Mercedes-Benz buyers, but also now for 2023, this vehicle is going to draw in people who have purchased rival brands as well. And I think that alone is huge for this generation moving forward. So to quickly wrap up this review, the 2023 Mercedes-Benz GLC is more than just a minor revision. It's more than just a minor refresh. Sure, when you take a look at this crossover from the outside, it looks like an enhanced version of a 2022 GLC. But it goes far deeper than that when you take a look at the interior, but more importantly, the driving experience and driving dynamics. You have a far more futuristic cabin with the new infotainment system and full digital gauge cluster. This seems more reflective of a crossover priced around $70,000 rather than $60,000 for this specific model that we have here today. But then we take a look at the driving dynamics, the new stiffer suspension, the revised 9-speed automatic transmission, and the 48-volt mild hybrid system all come together to make this SUV feel sportier, more refined, more upscale. And what I've noticed with this crossover is that it still has the luxury first DNA and persona, but it now has a small taste of an AMG experience. I think a lot of buyers were looking for that in the GLC 300. They wanted maybe an AMG 483 style when it came to the steering, when it came to the handling and cornering, but they didn't want to spend that extra money for the 43. And now for 2023, for the GLC 300, with this stiffer suspension, with the way the handling is, this is definitely going to appeal to a lot of buyers. It's going to appeal to people who purchased the GLC in the past, but this is very competitive to other crossovers in this market and price range. And that's why I feel, finally, that the GLC, even though it was the best-selling crossover in the lineup for Mercedes-Benz, this is now going to draw in different consumers. This is going to draw in people who may have purchased an Audi in the past or a BMW X3, and they're looking for that luxury. They're looking for that technology. But now, since they've already been used to that performance from other rivals, they're going to get it with the 2023 GLC. And that's why I think that if you are looking at buying a vehicle right now in the luxury compact crossover market, the GLC now has to be on your list of considerations. But also, if you were on the fence before, back in maybe 2020, 2021, take a look at a 2023 model, because it's going to be a completely different experience than other GLCs in the past. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. Also, make sure to follow me on Instagram at Boston Autoblog so you can see what I'm up to and what vehicles I'll be featuring in the future. And I will see you guys next time.